Hi, if you're new here, I'm Sarah. Welcome to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. As you can see, I broke my last set of nails, so I'm back to naked nails. Then I did this crappy thing. Here, let me turn this light on. Might be a little brighter. I did this with an e-file. You know that challenge where you should like e-file an egg? Yeah, maybe I should have done that first. Okay, so this kind of was painful. I'm going to let that sit for a few days before I do anything more with it. Then I got these short coffin shape. I hate that. Coffin shaped nails. These are ballerina nails, actually, and I can totally see why. Because, let me do this quick. I'll grab one. And when you get them on a form like this, they always have this little nubby thing that I just right away file that right off. Okay. And then I'll show you something here quick. Okay. Ballerina nails, maybe you can't see it like this, but because they look like toe shoes, see that? Maybe take it off of this thing here for a second, or just use a different one here. I'll use its counterpart to show you. Ballerina nails, like the ballerina shoe. See? Ballerina. It's like the toe shoe. You see her little up on point, right? That's why it's called a ballerina shape for this particular shape. Easier if I use a colored one, like red toe shoes. Red toe shoes. Anyway, I was thinking of making holiday festive colors, green, red, and gold, that kind of thing. So I was gonna start on making just this press-on set. It's not really for anything specific other than just practice. But I wanted to also kind of talk a little bit about some of the just coping mechanisms, I think, for stress and cancer. Because actually doing nails is part of my coping, this self-care thing. Because I was told to kind of keep my mind occupied, like don't think about your last scan because questionable stuff. And so that's like being told not to think about breathing, where then that's all you can think about. So what I did was I picked up a hobby, this, because it's something that I'm learning and it keeps my mind completely occupied, so that I'm not stewing on things. Because in some instances, when you have like anxiety or whatever, there's a little nubby here too. I'm going to file that. I didn't see that before. But in some instances, in trauma therapy, like when you go to like a therapist about trauma, sometimes there is no fix to the trauma or the panic or whatever. And that really the only obvious thing to do in certain situations is to distract, is not to sit there and let yourself think and think and think about this thing. And so I'm kind of employing those sorts of strategies that I learned from counseling into basically the same kind of thought when it comes to letting myself not stew or ruminate on, oh my gosh, there's all this stress in my life, and oh, what is this weird scan? They found a speck on my spine. What is this gonna mean? Especially since I was watching someone who had cancer, and it spread, before they realized it spread to his spine, he went paralyzed. And he's passed away now. And that just really freaked. Okay, so it sounds really insensitive because I want to be there to support people, but at the same time, I don't want to find myself in situations where I'm constantly having to pick myself up too. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like that's a very selfish place to be, to say, I would love to be there for somebody or this person, but I'm too concerned about my own stuff, you know? Well, anyways, when I found out that he had passed away, I don't know why. I don't really know him, but it affected me a lot. And I thought, again, this distraction thing, I need something that's not cancer because I thought focusing on other people would be my good distraction, and sometimes it is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying sometimes you need something that isn't cancer-based to deal with cancer. I know that sounds so weird, almost kind of backwards, but sometimes I need a break from cancer. And this is kind of like that, where obviously, you know, I'm still taking my medications and doing my appointments and stuff. But sometimes I just need to wind down like, you know, anyone else. And I feel that that's not a huge, I don't feel like that's a really big ask either, just to not, you know, not think about the bad stuff all the time. And actually, you know, it was sort of an early goal early on. After I was done with my diagnosis and I started making contact with people again, because I had been isolating for years. And I remember saying to people a lot, actually, I promise I'm going to be able to talk about something besides cancer soon. It's just right now, it's all I can talk about. It was all I could think about. It was all I really had to focus on. And because of that, I didn't really know how to really talk about much else. I was kind of, I don't want to say boring, but I was this one topic person, and I didn't like that about myself. And so I have made strides to talk about other things besides just cancer. I know that sounds maybe really silly to some people, but I had to kind of come up with other things to occupy my mind because, well, they said when I was diagnosed, they said you need to understand that this is going to take over your life for a while. It's just going to be your life for a while. The cancer is just going to come in, upend everything, and be your focus now. And I didn't realize how right they would be. That's really, really true. It upended everything. Like, it left nothing unturned. It was just about the craziest thing I'd ever experienced. It was just so very complete. The whole taking over your life thing, you know, diet, exercise, even the way I dressed took over my my schedule for a long time. It took over everything. And now I feel like I'm getting my life back in a way. I mean, the cancer is still my constant companion. It's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. But I just feel like I'm starting to be able to discuss other things. And sometimes, I want to get now where like a day or two maybe can go by before I think about it. You know, I don't want it to be my main topic for life. I don't know how that sounds. That might sound ridiculous. Maybe, but I want more to my life than just talking about cancer. That said, this is, I think, a healthy coping mechanism that I'm dealing with it as I need to. Like when it comes up, when it's an issue that I need to be present for, that I'm on, that I'm handling it. I'm not ignoring the problem, but at the same time, other stuff. So I've been watching this couple of different people who have cancer that are very inspiring to me. And one of them is Willie beating cancer. Here's this guy who was in his 20s, diagnosed with brain cancer, and he's in the military. And I don't know, when I got diagnosed, I felt like I needed sort of to leave some world events behind and not focus on stressful things. And I'm going to end up doing another coat of this, I think. Instead of doing that, Willie, he got out of the military and took his money and invested in all kinds of camera equipment and spent his own money for travel and went to Ukraine. And now he's a war correspondent, like a private war correspondent, oftentimes reporting from Ukraine. How crazy is that? Well, he's in his 20s. He's got his whole life ahead of him. I found out that I had cancer at 48 years old. The bucket list is significantly different depending on when you get diagnosed, I think. My thing isn't like, I haven't lived yet, I've had my opportunities to do the things that I mostly wanted to do and spend time with the people that I mostly wanted to know. And my life has largely been fulfilled. Whereas people that get diagnosed so young, they got their whole lives ahead of them and they've barely even started achieving any goals yet. I feel so bad for them. It's the saddest thing when I hear about somebody young getting diagnosed, because I was almost 50 and it felt unfair and overwhelming and all of that. But at least I felt like I knew my way in life a little bit, like I knew the world more, I knew myself. I'm in a loving, happy relationship that's, 30 years of marriage, I've been walked up the aisle. I've had my special moments in life. I don't want to say like I'm on the back half, but midlife is a very different place to find out that you have cancer compared to finding out that you have cancer like in your 20s or early 30s or whatever. So I also watch Heather Jose. She's another stage 4 cancer patient. She's got breast cancer like I do, but hers is all HR negative. It's like her hormone responders, that's not even a thing for her. Like I get hormone therapy where they just put me in menopause or whatever. Hers, it doesn't respond to that kind of therapy like mine does. So it's a scarier cancer that she has. She found out that she had cancer at 26 years old. She had an 18-month-old. And back then in the 90s, because I had health issues in the 90s, let me tell you, not cancer, but fertility issues. I was in my 20s too at that time in the 90s. And, doctors back then were not afraid to tell their patients at all, look, I mainly deliver babies and you're not doing that anymore. And there's no chance of you doing that. So, yeah, I need these appointments free. You can see a different doctor now. You don't have a uterus anymore. At 23 years old. Well, I have abdominal adhesions. Long story. Anyway, she treated it with a hysterectomy. And, then just kind of dismissed me. She wanted to go back to, I guess, delivering baby. She said, if you're not going to have a baby right now, then I'm recommending this. Because it was so painful every time I had a period. So they thought, well, just end the periods. Well, that year, I found out later, they had done in the United States, like over 30,000 unnecessary hysterectomies were performed in the United States that year alone. So, yeah, angst. I went through my 20s with lots of angst about that. But at the same time, everybody's got their thing, right? So Heather Jose, around the same time, back in the 90s, around the same age, she was 26. So let's see, I was 1998 when I was 26. So she was told, you have stage 4 cancer. It doesn't respond to hormone, whatever. It's stage 4. So we want you to put your affairs in order. See you later. Bye. Because they were doctors that were more, back then especially, really focused on the people they could treat. And they weren't that focused on people that were untreatable in their mind. So she had to go from doctor to doctor to find somebody that wasn't going to write her off, that was willing to, like, not put an expiration date on her. So, I mean, that was a different time before I think hospitals started doing more marketing and treating patients like consumers and customers and clients, rather than, we are God, you're the patient, you obey us. That was a very different relationship between doctors back then and their patients back then. And for me, it was devastating, just devastating to be, like Heather, more or less written off like that. Gosh, do I do one more? There's still I still see translucence here. I can kind of see through these, and I'm thinking maybe one more coat before I top coat them. But I don't want to shrink them either. I know that can get them really, make them tighter. If you keep adding and adding, it can kind of shrink up the nail a little bit. So, Okay, one more. So anyway, I'm doing really thin coats. So back then, going to the doctor, I mean, I had one doctor who was like, yeah, you have adhesions. And I'm like, so what do I do about it? And he's like, well, that's just your body's way of telling you something's wrong. That's all that pain is. So his recommendation, literally, just deal with it. It's pain. You have pain now. Okay, so the reason I have adhesions is because my appendix ruptured when I was like 4. And most people, when their appendix or gallbladder or whatever ruptures and cause adhesions, it's usually like in your 40s or 50s. Mine happened when I was 4 years old. So all those adhesions that grew in, my organs had to, my abdominal organs and whatever, had to grow around all of that. Because adhesions, nobody mentioned this before, but I found out later in life, adhesions harden over time. And so my little organs as a child had to grow around all those adhesions. And now when they do surgeries, it takes a long time and everything, because they can't tell one thing from the other. It's all just sealed together and a mess. And they don't want to pull them apart and cause like ripping my bowels and stuff. So they can't even locate my little ovary, my one ovary I have left. They wanted to remove it so that I could go off. I could stop taking Lupron injections. And nope, they can't. They went in, they couldn't even locate my ovary. It's lost. So, yeah, that's just, it's nowadays it's, you know, a little bit, they were nicer about it. A lot nicer about it than back then. And, they know more about adhesions now, so they know to be more gentle and not offer to, quote, loosen up the adhesions. That does nobody any favors. That's just torture. That's not even really helpful. So, yeah, I got, I got more educated about them, and I've learned like little massages and certain little stretches and exercises I can do to help. And I have a, pain medication if it gets real bad. And, never had kids or whatever. That's fine. Not everybody has kids. And, yeah. But at the same time, again, coping, when my friends were having kids and so forth, I think I took that time to kind of have a little bit of a second childhood, I guess. Because when you don't have kids, you don't have to grow up as much as everybody else, I think. There's a little bit of that Peter Pan syndrome you can kind of keep for life. And I definitely think that my husband and I have embraced that a bit, just a little, to kind of give ourselves, more entertainment. And I mean, we don't travel that. We don't live extravagantly, but it's certainly, I see parents sacrificing a lot for their kids in ways that we never really had to. And so I can see why people say, oh, people that don't have kids are selfish. Kind of, because they can be, because they don't learn not to be, I guess. Because you're not really sacrificing for, children. You're sacrificing for each other sometimes. If you're married or whatever. You still have a relationship. Or I do anyway. But my coping oftentimes is to try to turn something into good news. Instead of focusing on how bad it is. It's try to focus on what I've learned or what good came of a situation. And, cancer doesn't have a lot of that. But, there are some positives, like it helped me deal with like my suicide ideation and stuff like that. There have been good things that have come from my cancer, but I don't want to go around telling people it was a net positive either. I don't want to sound insane. But I just think that a lot of people look at cancer like it's the worst thing that ever happened, which I can see why. For many people, that would be true. And also at the same time, I can see why there are people who say cancer was the best thing that ever happened to them, but I don't want to be that person to say. I feel like that's an incredibly naive stance, is to say cancer is the best thing that ever happened. No, I had suicide ideation when I was diagnosed, and my brain interpreted the information as somewhat good news. That's because I was already dealing with mental illness. That's not your typical reaction. I think what was a great help to coping and putting it into perspective was when I had to tell my husband. That was really hard. But it made us closer, I think. I think we've gotten, like I said, we were married about 30 years when I told him, but I think that it made us somehow closer as a couple rather than farther apart. So go figure that. That's kind of crazy, huh? So instead of, again, I don't want to say that cancer was a good thing. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying that even bad things sometimes have some silver linings. You know, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but at the same time, it's, and I may eat these words a year from now or whatever, but this could have been worse. It could still get worse, but my experience could have been worse, and I try to remind myself of that whenever I find myself a little bit on that pity potty. I try to remember that this could be so much worse, and that really, this is I don't want to say it's a private fight, but this is okay. And life is finite. Nobody's here forever. Although I know they just came out with that test where these mice, they're de-aging the mice. And I'm like, what the heck? And it's become clear that they're de-aging the mice. I came down with cancer just as humanity is figuring out how to live forever. Wouldn't it just be my luck? Did I get cancer just as we start unlocking the keys to eternity or whatever you want to call it? So yeah, that would be great. Really great. Not, but still. This nail here, I think I'm going to do this one white. And that way, if I get the urge later, I can do a little drawing or something on it. So I think that white would be nice. And I'm also using these La Fauna base and top coat just to kind of use these up and save some of my other products for when I'm a little better at this. Oopsie, I think there's I got a little extra there that I don't need. That no one needs that much right there. Okay. Okay. Did I coat both? They look, both of them look coated. Okay. So yeah, there's just different ways of coping. I know some people exercise and outdoors. For me, outdoors is nice, but now it's starting to snow and it's getting colder and damper out there. So I've been indoors more, but having a hobby, having distractions, having support around you. Like one of the things I did was I got in touch with my mother-in-law right away because I told her before I told my husband, I said, he doesn't know yet. Don't give him a call yet. I have to tell him tonight when he gets home from work. But he's close with his mom, and I wanted for him to have someone to lean on. I felt that because I used to work in healthcare, and I know that the caretakers sometimes are going through more than the patients at times. So I wanted him to have a support system because I didn't know how sick I would get. I just heard cancer. I thought I was dying. So right then, like now, not 2 weeks from now, but you hear the C word and you start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now. And it's just, that wasn't the case. I wasn't dying right now. But at the same time, I wanted him to have someone to talk to. I didn't want anyone else to know because I didn't know enough that I didn't feel comfortable talking to people about it that much until I knew more. At least the stage, because that was the first question I was getting was, well, what stage is it? And they can't tell you right away until they can do the right tests. And for me, they had to get inside and do surgery to do the right test. And yeah, well, if you want, I can link to my cancer story below. I feel like I shouldn't have to, I guess I don't want to put people through it twice if they've already heard it. So hold this upside down so that it pulls a little bit towards the middle. So yeah, I think that overall, it's okay. You can cope with, cancer is something people can cope with. It's just, it's really good to sometimes not think about it. to sometimes not even to have a day once in a while where it doesn't even come up. It took over 2 years, but that finally did happen. It is starting to happen. I'm starting to see that more now, where life is taking over again. Cancer, I don't want to say it's taking a back seat by any means, but it's not always in the driver's seat now. And I'm very much happier like that, I think. Like I said, I'm dealing with the problem as it happens. I'm not trying to deny the problems, but at the same time, I don't think that I don't think it's proactive to cope if all you're doing is ruminating. That's not coping. That's just ruminating. So I try to find a happy medium between focusing on it and giving it the attention it needs and deserves, but not to the point where it's my only thought or it shapes all of my other thoughts. I need space in my head for other things, and cancer sometimes needs to sit in the back. Not always. I don't even know if that's most of the time. That's not possible, but there are occasions where I can get through an entire conversation without cancer even coming up. And I love that. That's better, that's a much happier way for me anyway. I feel that's a happier feeling to know that I can participate in other conversations, and they don't all have to be life or death situations, So I guess I don't know what I'm trying to really say overall here, but I think if you take anything away from this conversation today is there are lots of different ways to cope. Sometimes the best way to cope is just to go about your life. Deal with stuff, deal with other things, deal with life. And maybe not focus on the stressful thing, Maybe don't give it that kind of power over your life where I'm having this issue with these coffin nails where it all wants to bunch up at this end here. Anyway, yeah. So that would be my message for the day, I guess, is take time to enjoy other things besides just the problems in your life. Take time to get to know yourself when you're not in crisis mode. And take time to, even if there's a crisis, if you don't have to pay attention to it right then, maybe take time to appreciate other things going on in your life so that you're not stuck with just crisis. Everybody needs more than just that one survival mode. And once you get to survival, sometimes the key then is just to let yourself have fun and enjoy the ride. And if you can, take that opportunity while you can. Because I don't know if my health is going to be this good next year, whatever. I just want to enjoy it while I can, as much as I can. So, all right, those are my thoughts of the day. I hope that maybe there was something useful here. I kind of rambled. But whatever the case, I hope that you're having a wonderful day. And again, please take care of yourself and be kind to yourself and others, okay? All right, bye.